Hi, I'm Jackie, and for our Math 1A project, we're studying the Paraguayan economic inequalities.
Hi, I'm Lillian, and our initial question for this project was, how has the 2020 ratio of Paraguay changed from 1980 to 2014? And basically the 2020 ratio is the income of the top 20% over the income of the bottom 20% in a country, and in 1980 it was 10.23, and in 2014 it was about 12.396, and over time it has become more unequal, while the richest 20% earn 10 times more than the bottom 20%.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Matt, and my team is wondering if this tells the entire story behind inequality.
Okay, hi, my name is Jade, and the different aspects of inequality that we are going to be considering are the nature of inequality, health inequality, racial inequality, and different measurements of inequality.
Go.
So an example used to explain the nature of inequality would be a coin flip game where you have to pay $100 to enter. So imagine that if the coin lands on heads, you gain 20% of what you currently have, which is $100. And if the coin lands on tails, you lose 17% of what you have. Using some simple math, your initial expected value for playing this game is 50% times $20 plus 50% times $17, which will equal about $1.50. But what if you keep playing and happen to continue landing on tails? You'll continue to lose 17% of what you have. So the first turn you'd end up with $83, then $68.89, then $57.18, and so on. To conclude this scenario, you would continue to lose more and more out of the sheer luck of a coin flip. In his article, Is Inequality Inevitable?, Bruce M. Boghossian and his group of researchers at Tufts University concluded that their mathematical model based on a game of luck calls attention to how luck plays a much more important role than it is usually accorded, so that the virtue commonly attributed to wealth in modern society, and likewise, the stigma attributed to poverty, is completely unjustified. In summary, luck plays a major role in determining levels of inequality created by economic transactions.
Okay, another aspect of inequality to consider is health and wealth inequality. So according to our readings, health and social problems are worse in countries where there's greater income inequality. But that being said, higher incomes don't necessarily mean better health. So to know Paraguay's health and wealth inequality, the government would need to conduct additional research in the health of different income brackets or different demographics, because the missing pieces in this scenario are health statistics of different demographics. So in order to calculate the health and wealth inequality, in this case, we would need to ratio the health of the top 20% to the health of the bottom 20%. And if we had the materials to do this and be able to calculate health wealth inequalities, we could see things like the fact that there's much better healthcare if we were able to calculate this type of health wealth inequality, we would be able to see things like the fact that there's much better healthcare available in urban areas of Paraguay than in rural.
The next inequality to look at is racial and wealth inequalities. More modernly, like Black households have on average less wealth than white households do, being about 6 times less in wealth. So if we translate that to a nation like Paraguay, that means that the amount of wealth they have would be significantly less. This problem means that the Gini index and the 2020 ratio don't account for inequality of opportunities that lead to the accumulation of wealth. Further, racial inequality wealth gaps stem from racial inequities during slavery in numerous countries. For example, legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and other emancipation acts did not help those countries accumulate more wealth. In fact, the wealth gap was still roughly the same, and that's because wealth takes time to accumulate. So if there have been inequalities that have been stopping that for hundreds of years, then it is even more hard for countries as they modernize to accumulate wealth. Moving on, that means that to assess inequality, we actually need to capture the dynamics of wealth accumulation by race and by country. So if we're using the Gini index and the 2020 index, we need to be mindful of the demographic that's actually making up the top or bottom 20%. Further, there's racial discrimination in labor markets that also skew our understanding of how nations grow wealth and how people in different nations grow wealth, which is why this also needs to be taken account of in order to get a more accurate view of racial inequality.
I will be going over measurements of inequality, specifically two. Starting out with the decile ratios, which is a pretty basic or standard measurement that takes the top 10% of a nation or region's wealth, more specifically wage or salary, and then divides that by the lower 10%. This is only useful in comparison to other regions or nations. So if we look at another measurement, which is the coefficient of variation, this measurement can be used to specifically look at a certain area rather than compare multiple. So how you get this ratio is by dividing the standard deviation of the income distribution by its means. So essentially you take all of the standard deviation of income, and from that, whatever the deviation is from the mean will give you the coefficient. So why these matter is, for example, in modern day America, executives in businesses hold about 120 times more wage or salary than their lower employees. Despite this, though, there are variations in the data that should be considered. Number one is that it is very difficult to acquire a lot of data in a given region, as well as in certain nations, especially in America, wealth can drastically vary as per either an individual's salary or family's wealth mobility, either going up or down, which is not so common in other nations. So these are our sources that we used for all of this, and we hope this information will be able to help you in making future policies.